Chat, we're back with our second Orgo video here on the channel. Ah! All right, so we're just gonna jump right into it. We're gonna talk about Newman projections and like stereoisomers, basically all of exam 2 for everyone at the ball, just probably everyone watching this video. So yeah. Also, like I'm gonna be coughing a lot in this video because I got dunked in the PCRF dunk tank and I've been coughing ever since. Shame on y'all for dunking me. But yeah, let's get right into it. So first we got this compound right here, and we always draw stuff out like this, right? We just draw it out like that. But this is like an actual 3D object, right? So it could be rotated and everything, right? So let's just say this is my hand, right? So like this is the bromine, this is the other bromine. It's just like that. But like in real life, it's not like 2D, it's 3D. So you could rotate it like this. See that? The two bromines, and you just rotate it. So that's basically what a Newman projection is. You could rotate the drawing so you could see how it looks in that 3D orientation, if you will. So the way we draw Newman projections is just based off your perspective. So if I'm over here and I'm looking at this whatever in this way, then the first most middle carbon or whatever I'm going to see elements I'm going to see is this middle one right here, right? So I'm just going to draw it. So this right there, this dot is that middle carbon. And what's attached to that carbon? Well, there's a methyl group going towards me in this drawing. So if I'm looking at it like this, it's going to be right of this carbon, right? So this is the methyl. And then same thing for the hydrogen, but it's going left. So hydrogen. And then the bromine's sticking straight up. So if I'm looking at it into the plane, it's going straight up. Bromine. Okay. So yeah. And then now you're probably like, oh, so how do I draw this one? Because isn't it going to be behind? If I draw it this like this, there's still this back pinky wobbling back there, right? So that's what we're going to do. Wait, but I don't like this being methyl because we're going to talk about this in a little bit. All right. So the way you draw this back carbon is you just draw like a bigger circle just to show that there is a back carbon, because in reality this carbon is covering this carbon if you look at it, right? So yeah, and do the exact same thing. There's a hydrogen going right, hydrogen going left, and the bromine going straight up. But you can't really do that because if I draw it, it's going to be like on this line and on this line and on that line, right? So what we do is we just slightly do it off, not dash, but we just slightly do it off to the side, and then hydrogen, and then same thing, hydrogen. And notice how I drew the back bonds connecting to the circle in the back because it's connecting to that carbon. It's not connected to the first carbon. So same thing. There's a bromine attached to the second carbon, so it's attached to this back carbon, and then Br, bromine. All right. So that's basically a Newman projection. And so yeah, just intake that real quick. I'm debating right now if I should draw it bigger or not. I'll just actually fine. I'll draw it a little bit bigger. So yeah, just intake that. That's how you draw Newman projections. That's how you identify where the carbons or whatever is. And now we're gonna go into classes of the Newman projections. So if I'm looking at this exactly how it is, how does it exactly look like? It would just look like the drawing I just drew. So I'm just gonna draw it a little bit bigger off to the side. Okay. Okay. So when we're looking at a Newman uh, projection, there's two forms, well, like two major forms. One is called the anti, and one is called the staggered. Okay, and from what we know about single bonds, they can rotate. So what we could do with this Newman projection is we could rotate the back carbon or front carbon, whichever you like. In this scenario, I'm just going to rotate the back carbon just because it's just easier to rotate one and not the other, you know? So right now, it's in its uh, eclipsed form. Okay? There's eclipsed and then there's staggered form. So right now, it's in its eclipsed form because the back carbons are perfectly aligned with the front carbons. See how they're next to each other, whatever? And what we don't like in Newman projections is having the highest groups, which basically means the biggest groups, next to each other or like parallel to each other or whatever. So in this bond or compound or whatever, the bromines are the two biggest, fattest groups, right? And they're like right across from each other. So there's gonna be like some steric clash, right? And that's what's going on. Like as you can see, they're like right on top of each other. So there's gonna be steric clash because they're so big. So this is the worst possible uh what is it called? Eclipse form. It's the worst possible eclipse form. So this is eclipse. Eclipse. And now we're gonna draw the staggered form. So by doing that, you could see how the thing will look when it's rotated. And also every single eclipse form is higher energy than the staggered form, which means it's unstable. It doesn't like to be that way. So I'm gonna draw like a staggered form of this guy. And I'm only rotating the back carbon in this case. Okay? So I'm just rotating the back carbon. See how the front carbon is exactly the same? Now I'm just rotating the back carbon. Okay? Now see how the bonds are not perfectly aligned. That's what it means to be staggered, when the bonds are not perfectly aligned. So this is a staggered form. Okay? And this staggered form is called its gauche staggered form, right? Am I right? Yeah, gauche. And why is it called gauche? I don't know why it's called gauche, but the reason why, uh, like it's called. Okay, let me rephrase. The reason why we're making distinctions between a staggered form is because this one has higher energy than another staggered form because there's still steric clash. Because bromine is so fat, right? Even when it's in a staggered form, it's gonna have higher energy if the bromines are still next to each other. So it's called gauche. And and this will make more sense once I draw the other one, the whole energetics thing. I'll explain it more better in like a few seconds. So right now I'm just rotating the back carbon again. All right. So what uh, Newman projection thing is this? Is this eclipse or is it staggered? It's staggered, right? But since the two opposite groups, not opposite, the two biggest groups are opposite from each other because the bromine's so fat, they don't want to be next to each other. So since they're opposite, then this is called anti anti staggered, right? And this is gauche. And keep in mind, the anti and staggered is when the largest group from the front carbon and the largest group from the back carbon are like interacting. So if like let's just say I erase this methyl and this is like a fluorine. I don't even know if that's possible, but just to give an example, let's say this is a fluorine and this one's like a hydrogen. This is not a gauche thing because this fluorine is connected to this carbon and this bromine is connected to this carbon. The two biggest groups in the whole compound are still on the same carbon. So staggered and gauche, anti, whatever, it only depends on the largest group on the front carbon and then the largest group in the back carbon. And then like the okay, and I probably said this before, but my head's kind of fuzzy right now because I just had a biochem exam yesterday, and man, I barely got any sleep. But that's irrelevant to this video. Let's get right back into it. So basically, these Newman projections have like energies related to them, right? Because they're steric clash or whatever, and if there's things that molecules don't like and they're doing something, then you're gonna have high energy. If I see my little cousin doing whatever, like he's like doing something stupid, I'm gonna get really angry and I'm gonna have a lot of energy to hit him, right? So same thing what's going on with molecules. If there's a molecule and there's a part of it that's doing something it doesn't like, it's gonna have a lot of energy and it's gonna try to change its thing to make it less energetic, so more stable. Okay? So if the two largest groups, the biggest thing in the front carbon and the biggest thing in the back carbon are opposite to each other, this means that there's less sterics, less energy, which means this one is the most stable, right? Oh yeah, wait, I've changed this. Okay. Okay, and now if I rotated that back carbon to where the biggest group in the back carbon is now next to the biggest group on the front carbon, right? But it's still staggered. It's called the gauche form. And this one is the highest energy in a staggered form. So this is highest energy in a staggered form. Staggered. So if you have a question and it says, which is the highest staggered uh, energy thingy, it's going to be a gauche form or whatever. Right? And then if you're looking at whatever and it's looking at all three of these guys, which one has the highest energy is going to be the eclipse form because the bromines are literally on top of each other. So this is highest energy overall. Highest E. Okay? And the way I think about it is this. If I'm sitting on a bus, because like a seat, a bus, why am I drawing the seat? If I'm sitting down on a seat, like a two-seater seat, and this is like really like smelly guy and he's coming onto the bus and he sits somewhere else, I'm gonna be like, oh good, I don't have to deal with him, right? So he's sitting away from me. So that's what's okay. Let me just rephrase everything. Maybe I shouldn't have made the video today. Okay, so let's just say I'm sitting in the back of the bus, okay? And a really smelly guy comes up and he sits in the front of the bus. Well, I'm gonna be happy because a really smelly guy is so far away from me. So that's what's basically going on in the anti-staggered form. I'm all the way up over here in the back of the bus, and the smelly guy is up in the front of the bus. I'm not gonna interact with him, whatever. I'm gonna be stable. I'm gonna be calm. Now let's just say the I'm sitting in the back of the bus, and the smelly guy sits uh, on the seat across from me. So I'm sitting on the bus. The guy sits across from me. The smelly guy sits across from me. I'm gonna be kind of mad. I'm gonna be like, why is this smelly guy sitting next to me? And I'm gonna be like kind of mad or whatever. So I'm gonna have a lot of energy, and I'm gonna be in an unfavorable position. So that's basically what's going on in staggered gauche form, gauche staggered form, whatever. Right? I'm gonna be mad. Now let's just say, for some stupid reason, the smelly guy just sits on top of me. Right? This I'm over here. The smelly guy, instead of sitting across the seat next to me, he just sits on top of me. I'm gonna be super mad, right? So I'm gonna be like, "Yo, what the hell? Get off me!" And I'm gonna have so much energy, right? So that's what's going on in eclipse form. And always remember, eclipse forms, no matter what, are always higher energy than staggered forms. So even if this is like let's just say this is like a carbon, right? Okay, let's just say let's just say there's like a carbon, so like a methyl group over there, right? And then like this one was like the bromine. And also you can't just rotate stuff like that, by the way, because I what I did was a mistake. I just flipped the two, but in reality, if I wanted to rotate bond or whatever, this one would become the hydrogen, this one would become the methyl, and this one would become the bromine. But you probably already knew that, so I'm not gonna teach you stuff that your professor already taught you. Okay, so actually, I take that back. What I was doing was right, but we're not gonna get into it because you already knew that. So even if the eclipse form looks like this, right? This is still a higher energy than the staggered forms because the guy is literally sitting on top of him instead of next to him. Even if like this guy was the bromine, and then this guy was the hydrogen, and then this guy was the methyl. This is still higher energy because the dude's sitting on top of another guy. No matter what happens, if you're on a bus and no matter where the seat is, some guy just sits on top of another guy. Regardless if it's you, you're still gonna be like, what the hell? Why is another guy sitting on top of another guy? So that's why all eclipse forms are higher energy than all staggered forms, right? And that's probably about it for Newman projections, right? You only need to know staggered and eclipse, and then eclipse are the highest energy. The gauche form of a staggered is the second highest energy, and the anti is the most stable. And there's probably more energetics questions. Like you're probably gonna get like the bromine over here, and it's gonna be like, oh, compare the energy from the bromine when it's over here to when it's over there. Well, this one is higher because it's gauche, and the other one is just a regular staggered form. But you guys probably already knew that because you guys learned Newman projections before I talked about this because I was kind of late to the party. Because y'all had exam one, right? We had an exam one too, but we went more over it in exam two. So that's why I was like, okay, let me just do this. But you guys probably figured out everything to know about Newman projections if you're so smart guy. That's why I kind of rushed it. I should have took some Tylenol before coming here because my head is hurting. But if I did that, I would become autistic, right? Wait a minute. Okay. So next, we're going to talk about cyclohexene. And what does cyclohexene look like? Oh no, this guy's dying. So a hexagon is a cyclohexene, right? Cyclohexene. But the thing is, what is the orbital of this carbon and all the carbons here? What's the orbital? sp3, right? And what is the angle for sp3? Like, what are the bond angles? It's 109, right? But if you draw a hexagon, the angles are all 120 or something, right? So drawing a hexagon as Drawing cyclohexene as a hexagon is not how cyclohexene actually looks like because it's not representing the angles, right? So cyclohexene doesn't actually look like that. But it looks like that if you look on top of it, but it's not in like a single plane. The way cyclohexene looks is like this. Wow, I kind of forgot how to draw these guys. This is how cyclohexene looks like. And let me just draw out a hexagon again. So it could be any way. Like any carbon could represent any carbon because it's all the same. But in this scenario, in whatever I'm drawing, I'm always going to draw this carbon as this carbon, and then this down carbon over here as this carbon. And then this carbon right here is this is that. All that really matters when you're thinking about drawing cyclohexene in this chair conformation is you establish that this guy is either this guy or this guy, and then this guy is either this guy or this guy. That's really all that matters in terms of thinking, because after you establish one position of one carbon, you're gonna automatically establish the rest. So yeah. Wait, how do I draw this guy? I kind of forgot because it looks kind of weird. So basically, that drawing, the chair conformation, is actually how cyclohexene looks like. But I'm just gonna draw it a little bit better. Oh yeah, and also if your professor's like, why can't cyclohexene be a hexagon? The answer is because it'll have torsional strain and it can have steric strain, and the bond angles are not 109. That's definitely going to be a free response question because I think that was on my quiz and then later on the exam. So yeah, so cyclohexene actually looks like that. Oh yeah, this is how I draw it. So I draw like a line like this, and then like a line like that, which are both equal in length, but just it's just cut off. And then I'd go up like that. But I don't like drawing it where the thing is on the left. I like it drawing it when it's on the right. Like this, this. So cyclohexene looks like this. And this is called a chair conformation. And then there's also, actually, let me not get into that right now. So this is a chair conformation of cyclohexene. This is how it actually looks like, right? And so what you could do is you could flip flop these angles, right? So let's just say I just crank this guy up, then it's gonna look like this. The cyclohexene is gonna look like this. Oh, that was a terrible line. So the cyclohexene is gonna look like this. Now, this is what's called a boat conformer, and it's really high energy and it's not stable because there's steric strain. And you're looking at it and you're probably thinking like, yeah, there's hella steric strain because the top two edges are like right next to each other. So yeah, that's basically all you have to know about this conformation. You're never gonna see it again. But what happens is when this guy goes up, then this guy could go down. So this guy goes up, he's up, and now this tip could go down. And now I'm gonna draw it down here. Wait, actually, yeah, I'm gonna draw it a little bit below because there's the glare. So now you draw it out like this. Right? So now there's this. So the way you guys already know, but when you draw like a squiggly thing, that means it's changing like conformation or looking at it a different way, so whatever. So basically, every cyclohexene has two conformations. well, 2 chair conformations. There's 3 conformations, including the boat conformer, but you're never going to see that ever again. And the explanation is all you need to know. So the only 2 important conformations for cyclohexene are the 2 left and right chair conformations. Right? So yeah. So now that we're done with explaining cyclohexene and how it looks, now we're going to get into the flippiness. Ooh, that's not right. Dang, it's been a while. So cyclohexene chair conformation. And let me just draw cyclohexene so you can point it out. So I'm just going to put a methyl group right there. And yeah, that's all I'm going to do. Also, I'm going to put this as a dash. Okay? So let's say you get a question, and it's convert this drawing into the chair conformation of cyclohexene. All you have to know is that if you see a wedge, it's above the hydrogen. And if you see a dash, it's below the hydrogen. Okay? So let's just say, also, let me introduce to you how the angles are like. So in cyclohexene, there's a carbon here, it has 2 bonds, so it can have bond up here. Oh my god, this marker is about to die. So there's a bond up here, and there's a bond right there. And see how it looks like a tetrahedral. If I just cover this, it's like a tetrahedral. It's the same thing here. There's one like this, and one down here. And then there's one going up, and then one right here. One like this, one over here. And what's this? One's like right over here, one's over here, one's over here, one's over here. So these are all the bonds in cyclohexene. And just for this scenario, I'm just going to put them all as hydrogen, because I want to show y'all something that's important. So notice how there are bonds that are just sticking straight up, and there's bonds that are at an angle. So this guy is sticking straight up, this guy's sticking straight up, this guy's sticking straight up, this guy's sticking straight up, but sticking down, and this guy's sticking down. So there's 3 things that are, not 3, 6, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 6 things, 6 bonds that are sticking up. And when they stick straight up or down, it's called axial. So this guy is called axial, right? And if it's out in the corner, then it's called equatorial. So equatorial. I don't know how to spell equatorial, I'm sorry. I wish I had different colors. Actually, let me just draw it out like this. So whatever is blue, whatever bond is blue is axial, and whatever bond is black is equatorial. Okay? So the blue lines are your axial, and your black lines are the equatorial. That are, you know what I mean. Okay? And the reason why I'm emphasizing the difference between axial and equatorial is because you're gonna get a question like this, and it's gonna be like, okay, draw this in its chair conformation, right? So this thing is at a wedge. So when something is a wedge, you draw out as that thing, in this case the methyl group, is above the hydrogen. Okay? So if this carbon right here is this carbon, then this methyl is above the hydrogen. So there's a hydrogen on this carbon, so I'm going to draw it above. And this is a methyl. So this methyl is axial. right? And I'm not saying that the wedges are axial and the dashes are equatorial, because that is such a big misconception. Because now look at this. Let's say I say this guy is also a dash, right? If I say this guy's a dash, that means he's above the hydrogen, right? So it means this guy's a methyl. And he's still above the hydrogen. Even though the hydrogen's axial, he's above the hydrogen because he's a dash. Don't get it confused that a dash means it's axial and the wedge means it's equatorial, because everyone makes that mistake and it's a really easy thing to correct. Wedges means it's above the hydrogen. It does not mean axial. Dashes mean they're below the hydrogen. It does not mean they're equatorial. So let's just say I draw another thing, another methyl group, and it's a dash, and I draw another methyl group, and that's a dash, right? Well, this is above, supposed to be above the hydrogen, but there is the hydrogen. And this is supposed to be below the hydrogen, but the other thing's not hydrogen. So this one guy is the methyl, and this guy is the methyl. I don't know if that made sense to y'all, but it makes sense in my head because like it's my understanding of it. But basically that's the takeaway. Wedges and dashes. Wedges means above the hydrogen or above whatever the thing, and dashes means it's below. And that doesn't mean it's axial or equatorial. So what you could do is you could flip it. I'm going to revert everything back to hydrogen, basically. Right? So what you could do in the chair conformation is flip it, right? You can make the second conformation. So that's what I'm about to do. Right? And so when you flip a chair conformation, what happens is whatever is axial becomes equatorial, and whatever is equatorial becomes axial. Okay? So this methyl group was axial, and then I flipped it down. I flipped the chair thing, whatever, right? So now this methyl group is equatorial. Now the methyl group is equatorial. See that? And now let's just say I make this equatorial hydrogen into a methyl. So if I flipped it, and this carbon is this carbon, then this guy is equatorial. So now what? He's axial. That was not a straight line. He's axial. And please don't get the positions of the carbons confused, because I noticed that a lot of people are getting confused. When you flip a chair, the points are always still the points. So this point right here is this point right here. This point right here is this point right here. And then from there, you could rationalize all the rest. Because what I see a lot of people doing is they do a chair flip, and they think that this carbon right here is now this carbon. No, that's not the case. This carbon is the point, so this carbon is the point. Not this carbon somehow magically becomes this carbon. Because if you rationalize it, this carbon flips down, so it's now down here. And then now when you look to the right carbon, this right carbon is this carbon. So this carbon is this carbon. So that's basically it for chair conformations. When you flip it, the axial become equatorial, and then the equatorial become axial. And let's just say, I change this guy into a bromine, right? Change this guy into a bromine. Okay? So the thing about cyclohexene and axial groups is that axial groups are sticking straight up. So those axial groups are all in like the same relative plane as each other, right? So that means there's some steric interactions between all the axial groups. So this hydrogen, and that bromine all have steric interactions, but it's a hydrogen, so it doesn't really. But let's just say it's like a carbon or something. So those axial groups have steric interactions. Okay? So like what we said before, things don't like interacting, they don't like the sterics or whatever. So it's gonna avoid that. So now this methyl group is in its equatorial position, right? So when it's equatorial, it doesn't have any steric interaction whatsoever. Even though that this guy right here is equatorial, he has no steric interaction whatsoever magically. Even though that they're drawn like they're right next to each other, they're really not, because this guy is like up like this, and then this hydrogen is like down like that. So like they're away from each other, so there's no like real interaction, steric interaction going on. But axial groups do have that steric interaction. And now, now that we have a big bromine over here that has steric interaction, we don't like that. So this cyclohexene is going to rotate its position. So then this bromine could be in its equatorial position, so it won't have any steric interactions anymore. So it rotates and boom, it's there. It's equatorial. There are no more sterics on that bromine. But you're like, wait, but the methyl group is now axial, so now it has steric interaction. Yeah, but which one would you prefer? Would you prefer methyl group having steric interaction or bromine group having steric interaction? Would you rather have oh like a big ball hit you or a small ball hit you? You'd rather have the small ball hit you, right? So this is what's happening. Over here, the steric interaction is between the bromine. Over here, the steric group interaction is between just the methyl, right? So so the smaller thing is what's in the axial, and the bigger thing is what's in the equatorial. Why? Because I'd rather have a smaller ball hit me in the face than the big bromine ball. And now let's just say if I erase this, I make this a hydrogen. I mean, this relates to the same thing too, right? So let's just say this is how it actually looks. That's a terrible B, but whatever. This is the molecule. And professor says draw out the two chair conformations, and you drew out the two chair conformations, and then he's like, which one is a more favorable chair conformation? Well, the one on the left is axial. The bromine is axial, so now there's sterics. But on the right, the bromine is equatorial, which means it's no sterics. So the one where bromine is equatorial is the more stable conformation. And I don't know the specifics, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna see this is an actual molecule. This is like 0.01% of the like the conformation. Like the conformation is gonna be in this form like 0.0001% of the time, and then this one's like, wow, I don't know why I drew it a 9 like that, but this guy is the confirmation 99% of the time because that was just a favorable thing. So let's just say you have two big groups and they're both axial. Well, then if you flip it, they both become equatorial, and then that's a more favorable side. And then let's just say you have two things. One is axial and the other big thing is equatorial. Well, then that's just a matter of which one is the bigger one, and you put that bigger one in the equatorial. That's basically it for cyclohexanes. Okay. Yeah. Wow, I feel like this video is gonna be terrible. because I keep on like saying forget that or whatnot. But whatever, like the cyclohexene stuff is relatively easy, right? So now we're going to talk about stereoisomers. So stereoisomers. I don't really know what that means. I can't give you a definition, but I can explain it. So there are few classes of stereoisomers. Stereoisomers. Oh, actually, I can't explain stereoisomers. So stereoisomers are it's like, let's just say you have a compound and it has dashes and wedges. So stereoisomers is that basically same compound, but the dashes and wedges are different. Basically, it's a compound that has it's multiple compounds that have the same bond pattern, but just different 3D orientation. Okay, so stereoisomers. So there's different classes. There's 3 classes, right? So your first class is called an enantiomer. Enantiomer. So enantiomers are non-superimposable mirror images. Now, what does non-superimposable mean? It means you can't put it on top of each other. So, for example, my hand, if I put my left hand in a mirror, what's gonna come out in the mirror? It's gonna look like it's my right hand, right? So now I have these 2 hands, and even though they look the same, they're not because I can't put them on top of each other. So when you can't do that, even if I rotate it like this, oh snap, it goes on top of each other. No, because it's like I'm positioning them like this. They're not identical. It's like this. These guys are not identical hands. They're left and right hand. So boom. I have 5 minutes. Okay. So then, boom. This guy is not superimposable. It's non-superimposable. So that's what enantiomers mean. It means that there are non-superimposable mirror images. Well, I have 5 minutes, bro. I have 5 minutes in this room. Can I go over stereoisomers? You know what? I'll do that later this week. I'm gonna cut the video right there. So yeah, I'm gonna cut the video right here because I don't want to talk about stereoisomers. So yeah, that's about it. Shoparchive.com. And yeah, should I make an Instagram for Orgo, or should I just leave it as a YouTube video? I don't know. But basically, that's about it. Hopefully, the cyclohexene explanation made sense. I kind of just wanted to get a video out today, so sorry if the oh my god, the explanation didn't make sense. Uh, maybe I might redo the video if I'm in the mood. But hopefully, it made sense to y'all. And I'm sorry about coughing or whatever. I just wanted to get a video out because it's been a while. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later.